By the 1870s, the Sioux, or Lakota dominance, over trade and transactions on the northern Great Plains and along the Missouri River was nearly over. Mutual interests in self-preservation of their brand of Native American cultures drew Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho, plus a contribution of a few hostiles from lesser tribes like the Flathead, together in mobile communities. These tribes increasingly were isolated further west at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, in the Powder River and Yellowstone regions of the Wyoming, Montana, and Dakota territories. The American Army of Soldiers, Cavalry, and Native American Scouts created a pincher movement that eventually and finally squeezed the life out of the Northern Plains Indian resistance to the new terms of living imposed from Washington. I happened to come upon the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument by chance while driving one morning across the state of Montana. My experience during the couple of hours walking the bluffs next to the Little Bighorn River, once known to the native tribes as the Greasy Grass River, was one of the most moving to my spirit of any other encounter with an American memorial of historical significance. The scenery is phenomenal, the wind ghostly and telling. General George Armstrong Custer and more than 200 of his men still reside here among dead horses and Native Americans, all a gift to their own people and to the heroic, but also brutal, heritage of the maturing United States. They fought for very different reasons. Their fate, measured on shared ground, reminded me of the very depth of the human quandary: what to preserve in life and what to leave behind in death. In the early spring 1873, George Armstrong Custer assumed command of 10 companies of 7th Cavalry in Yankton, the capital of the vast Dakota Territory. General William Sherman assembled a massive force of at least 1,400 men, plus engineers and roughly 24 Indian scouts, probably Pawnee, plus wagons and more than 2,000 horses and mules. This Yellowstone expedition moved west from Fort Rice on the Missouri River in late June. The Lakota knew they were coming. The force reached the Yellowstone Tongue River Junction in August. Sitting Bull, meanwhile, had assembled Minneconjou, Ogallala, with Sans Arc and Cheyenne reinforcements. Like the soldiers, the warriors were now carrying Winchester magazine rifles, Henry and Spencer repeaters, and Springfield, Enfield, and Sharps breech loaders. With small harassing attacks managed by Indian bands, the troops were temporarily obliged to disperse and return to where they came from. Sheridan had picked Custer also to lead a Black Hills expedition with 100 covered wagons and 900 cavalry and infantry with Arapaho scouts. They all moved out of Fort Abraham Lincoln, located on the Missouri River in today's North Dakota, near Bismarck. Future campaigns were centered around this fortress on the north edge of the Great Sioux Reservation. Lieutenant Colonel Richard Irving Dodge, dispatched in 1875 with more than 450 soldiers and scientists to the Black Hills, found a decent amount of gold. Dodge promptly declared that, quote, "The Black Hills have never been a permanent home for any Indians. Besides, they were just depraved nomads who had failed to find the gold under their feet." To many political strategists in the U.S. Army brass, it was inevitable that the Indians would be persuaded to sell their lands and get out of the way. The U.S. government prepared for talks. Northern Lakota gathered for a Sundance on Rosebud Creek. Sitting Bull emerged riding a black warhorse, his body covered with shining yellow clay, his lower face black, and a black band circling his ankles and wrist. On his chest was a black disc, the sun. An offer was made to buy most of the Black Hills for mining uses and to buy much of the unceded territory west and north of the hills. At that time, some 13,000 Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho sent representatives regularly to collect their expected rations at the Red Cloud Agency, later moved to South Dakota and renamed the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in 1878. Indian Office Inspector Irwin Watkins toured the northern plains in the fall of 1875, reporting, quote, "They are still as wild and untamable and uncivilized and savage as when Lewis and Clark first passed through their country." After the Civil War and in the 1870s, the era of trappers and mountain man culture, with their big annual rendezvous gatherings, had ended, and the gold and silver miners were busy consolidating their efforts in the Black Hills, Montana, Colorado, the Southwest, and California, even Alaska. So the military moved in, and the wagon trains got longer and more diverse in passengers. Wagon train attacks by Native Americans were actually relatively rare, but clashes between Army and Indians erupted regularly. After a November 1875 meeting at the White House, the Indian Office and Department of Interior effectively handed over the Lakota policy to General Sheridan. The attack at the Washita in the winter 8 years earlier already had broken Cheyenne power in the Central Plains. The northern Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Lakota were closer united than ever out of necessity. Sheridan treated Washita as a template for the Lakota wars that kept breaking out. The winter campaign would entail 3 converging columns of soldiers and scouts pushing into the heart of the Lakota stronghold in the Yellowstone and Powder River counties. The armies would proceed from western Montana, Fort Fetterman, and Fort Abraham Lincoln on the upper Missouri. By now, the Indian Alliance understood that Ash Hollow, Whitestone, Killdeer, Sand Creek, Powder River, and Washita meant that the whites killed indiscriminately. Young warriors demanded immediate action, and some were even uneasy with, quote, slow Sitting Bull. The medicine man said he did not want war, but would fight if attacked. A westbound Lakota scouting party detected approaching whites on the upper Yellowstone in early May 1876. They stole more than 30 horses from the Army's new enlisted Crow Scouts. This was Sitting Bull's moment. he came, quote, into admiration by all Indians as a man whose medicine was good. He was considered brave but peaceful, strong, and religious. But a terrible dream had come to him near the mouth of the Rosebud. He acted on it. On June 9, at the mouth of that river, Colonel John Gibbon united with Terry, who had pushed west from Fort Lincoln with at least 900 troops and 150 wagons. The Crazy Horse had moved to neutralize Sheridan's pincher attacks. General Crook was supposed to drive the Indians toward Terry, but Indians drove him and his men out at the Battle of the Rosebud. Sheridan's strategy was only temporarily blocked, however. The Army contracted a paddle steamer to move supplies from the railroad in Bismarck into the Yellowstone and Terry's headquarters. On June 21, Terry, Gibbon, and Custer finalized plans for a decisive attack. It was targeting the Greasy Grass River, today named the Little Bighorn. On June 24, Lakota and Cheyenne spread their villages of about 1,000 lodges and upwards of 6,000 to 8,000 people, plus about 20,000 horses, along the Greasy Grass, a meandering tributary of the Bighorn River. Their villages were sheltered by bluffs to the east and bounded by lush rolling floodplain to the west, providing pasture for the massive horse herd. The location was considered ideal for a battle that Indians knew was coming, as Terry and Gibbon approached from the north. Quote, "We are now en route to the Indian village, which is supposed to be on the Little Bighorn," wrote Lieutenant James Bradley in his journal. "It is undoubtedly a large one. Should Custer's command and ours unite, we too will have a large force, numbering all told about 1,000 men, armed with splendid breech-loading Springfield rifles and carbines, caliber .45, and strengthened by the presence of Lowe's battery of 3 Gatling guns. It will be one of the biggest Indian battles ever fought on this continent and most decisive in its results." The soldier had no doubt what was going to happen. The utter destruction of the Indian village and overthrow of Sioux power would be the certain result. Custer proceeded confidently to direct what today is acknowledged to have been an ill-considered, reckless charge over the bluffs into the massive Indian encampment. Warriors quickly surrounded his 7th Cavalry and scouts. It turned into a wild scramble toward a small round hill on the far side of the ridge. The troops killed the remaining horses, crouching behind the still heaving bodies. They had only minutes to live. The men fired wildly or not at all, and some shot themselves. There was no military structure left, apparently. Surviving warriors later claimed the whites, quote, "became foolish, many throwing away their guns and raising their hands, begging for mercy that would not be offered." The Indians did not take a single soldier prisoner, but killed all of them. Down in the village, women captured the riderless white horses. Quote, "I wasn't a bit sorry," thought Black Elk. "I knew beforehand that this was going to happen. They came to fight us, and we had to fight. I went among them and met." After the battle, the massive village moved along the river approximately 16 miles. Along the Greasy Grass stream in the cottonwoods, lining the Little Bighorn River as it is known today, the Indians corralled their horses again, which were now 15,000. It should be noted that the dead along the Little Bighorn on the hillside did not receive proper burials. There is more to the story.